Hi, I'm Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching on Torah Anytime, our good friends at TorahAnytime.com, or whether you listen or watch your podcasts, we're happy to have you along for another exciting experience. Yeah, as the Rabbi Orlofsky Show only can. And in fact, that ties into our sponsorship this week, which is in memory of Miriam Bas Binyamin from her grandson, whose first yahrzeit will be on the 20th of Kislev. So there should be an aliyah from the neshama. And also a shout out to 9th and 10th graders from the exciting town of Waterbury, Connecticut. If you haven't been to Waterbury, Connecticut, wow, you're missing out on one of the great treats of modern Jewish life in America. Rabbi Kaufman started a yeshiva there, and bit by bit the community grew. And I heard from people in the community that even the non-Jewish community is so thrilled because they've revitalized the entire city. It was a dead city. And our sponsor, who is anonymous apparently, drives the 9th and 10th graders to the new Yeshiva Mesifta Yesodei HaTorah in Naugatuck, Connecticut. Not easy to say, Naugatuck. And it's a 40-minute drive. And he says that on this drive, they listen to the podcast and they listen to Shiurim. And they drive, it's 40 minutes each way, 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. What gives them the strength to be able to learn Torah the whole day is, of course, listening to my shiurim and podcast. And so we want to give them a special shout out to the guys in Waterbury, Connecticut, going to Naugatuck, probably the only place more exciting than Waterbury is Naugatuck. And what can I tell you, Rabbi Isai, you guys should steig and learn well and really do great things. And I'm so honored that I have the schus to be a part of your day. And what can I tell you? I guess we're going to have to make the podcast more often if we're only doing it once a week. You've got all these days driving back and forth. I don't know how we're going to produce enough material. Anyway, we are in the middle of a series. I haven't really done a series like this and ever. I guess maybe my Pesach program. But different aspects, obviously, of Pesach. But a young lady, Esty, wrote in and said, could you tell us how to decide how to choose a seminary in Eretz Yisrael or a yeshiva for that matter? It's all the same idea. And how does one choose? So we dealt with a few aspects of this. I want to continue along the theme. She said the following. She says, I have certain ideas in life. I want to marry a guy who's going to learn color for, a few years, but not forever. I may one day want to get a smartphone. We do use technology in our house. Any kind of phone, by the way, is technology, in case you don't know this. Before that, they used the telegraph, which was also technology. Before that, they used to just write down, on letters and have them sent along the Pony Express. But so she doesn't want a place that's going to discourage or look down at people who don't marry someone who's going to go for a very long time learning. This is a very important aspect. There's a lot of aspects that were in this that I want to talk about, but this is one that I have to talk about. I have this has gone on for years. Now the issues have changed, but the idea has gone on for years. I heard from somebody years ago. They wanted to get their kid into an elementary school, and they don't allow you to have a TV. So, of course, I told my son in the interview when they asked to say we don't have a TV. They make you sign, you don't have a TV. He says to me, he was complaining, he says, you know how sneaky they were? They didn't ask, do you have a TV? They said, what do you like to watch on television? And that's how they knew we had a TV. And the person was upset. I said, "You're a liar, and you're upset because the guy caught you? That's what you're angry about?" He says, well, what difference does it make? So I said, well, why do you want to send your kid to a school that doesn't allow TVs if you want to have a TV? Go to a school that lets you have a TV. He says, because they get all the best boys. I said, they get all the best boys because they come from houses that don't have TVs. So why do you want to go to a school where they don't let you have a TV and you want to have a TV? There were people who used to take the television outside of the house when they went for the meeting so they could say truthfully, we don't have a TV. You know, somebody told me that in their house the TV was on like a stand and it would sink into the ground for when people would come. I was like, talk about high tech, you know what I mean? It was like, you know, James Bond, you know, sinking to the ground. And I was always amazed about this attitude. Why go to a school that has a standard you don't want to maintain? Now, when I was a mashgiach, I had a boy in yeshiva, and he wouldn't get up in the morning, he wouldn't come to davening, he didn't go to Seder, and at night he hung out in town. I said to him, this is the wrong yeshiva for you. You belong in yeshiva X. And he said to me, well, I don't want to go there. It's a bum place. I said, I know, but you're a bum. You know, you don't daven, you don't learn, you hang out in town. You should be in a bum place. He says, no, I don't want to go to a place like that. I said, you want to go to a yeshiva that's good, that's filled with good guys, so you can be the bum. He goes, right. So I don't want to be surrounded by bums. I don't want to not be a bum. And I'm always amazed by this. And I used to tell my children all the time, here in Eretz Yisrael, I assume they have this in America as well, that when you go to a particular school, they have a takanon, a list of rules that you have to sign. And there were times that my kids were not prepared to follow through on what these demands were. And they said to me, Abba, well, what should I do? I said, if a school has a standard that you don't believe in, then don't go to that school. Go to a school that reflects your values. And they said to me, but none of the girls keep these rules, and they all sign it. So why do I have to be the only one who has to tell the truth? You see the problem? Now, why do we create a set of rules that nobody's going to follow, and we don't even expect anybody to follow, and we don't even go through with it? But, okay, this is a phenomenon. You know, the famous quote from Groucho Marx where he would say, I would never join any club that would have me as a member. And a lot of people say the same thing. If you start a yeshiva for B students, so you get D students. If you want to get B students, you have to say I'm an A student. I'm an A yeshiva. And it's an amazing thing. You have because everyone wants to go where they can't get into. I heard a story that when they first started Yeshiva Panovich, they didn't have a registration. So the Panovich Rav took out ads in all the front papers. Registration is closed. We don't have any more spots. And so everybody started calling. Protexia, I want to get this kid in, I want to get that one in. I don't know, I don't have any room, I don't have a bed. Because once I can't get in, I want to go. There's a certain mentality. And people don't even care if they want to go there or if the education is on the level that they want. There's this idea of, I want to go to that place because it has the best reputation. So now listen to a story. I meet a fellow, and he says to me, which high school is your girl in? I tell him the high school. So he says, why there? I said, it's a warm atmosphere. They work with the girls. The people smile. It's a positive thing, etc. And he looks at me and he says, I wish that I had the courage that you have. I said, what do you mean? He says, I was able to get my daughter into what's considered the best high school. even though I don't like it, even though I don't believe in it, even though I'd rather send her to the school that you're going to. But I could get into the best place. Why wouldn't I go? You hear the attitude? Everyone wants to go to the best place. I remember when my kids were little, there was some sort of thing we were talking about with somebody about doing something, whatever. And they said, it could affect you later in shidduchim. Don't you want your daughter to marry the best guy in Ponevezh? And I said, no, I want my daughter to marry the man who's going to be the best husband and father. I'm looking for a chashuv son-in-law. What, I've got a yeshiva to leave him? I'm a speaker. If he knows how to tell some funny stories, I'll get him a gig, but that's about it. There's so many people who want to make the best shidduch. They want to get into the best school. And even if the school... I was trying to start a high school at one point. I couldn't make it happen, but I was trying to start a girls' high school here in Israel. And I spoke to parents. And I told them what my vision was, and they said, that's great. I would love that for my daughter. And I said, so would you send her? And they said, yeah, if I can't get her into any place else. Because I'd rather, and this is what one parent said to me, but Pemole, I'd rather send my daughter to a school that will turn her off from Judaism, but will be better for shidduchim, than to send her to some place where she'll be happy. So I'm looking at a seminary and I say, okay, this seminary or this yeshiva does not reflect my values. So why would I go there? So I'll tell you why. It's really very simple. I'll go there and ignore what they're saying. But why are you going to a school that you're starting off and you don't believe in it? I've been teaching Mesil Sharm for over 30 years. And a girl says, oh, we have Mesil Sharm in our seminary. I said, really, where are you up to? He said, we're still in the Hagdama. I said, wow, you must really be ma'ayin in it. What have you taken away from Mesil Sharm? You have to marry a boy in learning. I said, I've been teaching Mesil Sharm for many years. I never saw that. Where's that line exactly? Because I don't remember seeing that line. This is the only message of Mesil Sharm. Rav Moshe Shapiro said once, he read a pasuk in Nach, and he made fun of the fact that basically only girls learn Nach and guys don't really learn Nach so much. For those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, the Bible. The Bible, what we call in Hebrew the Tanakh, is made up of three parts, the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. The Torah are the 5 books of Moses, what we also call the Chumash from the word Chamesh, or in Hebrew, Pentateuch from the word Penta, which is 5, and Tuch, which is Torah. And then there are the books of the prophets. And then there are the books of the Ksuvim, the writings. And so what's called Nach, which are the last 2 sections, girls tend to learn that. Boys don't really do that so much. If they come across the pasuk, it's because the Gemara brought it down someplace and they had to darshan it. But so Rav Moshe Shapiro was giving shir, and he brings a pasuk from the Nevi'im, and he says, what does this pasuk teach us? And he says, well, basically, girls are the ones who learn Navi. So what this pasuk is teaching us is you have to wear stockings. Because every pasuk in Navi teaches us that you have to wear stockings. And yet, there might be a bigger idea here. Because, what is the message on life that I'm trying to bring across through this shir, through this idea? And when I taught in a seminary once, and a girl says, goes, well, I feel like this other seminary is more intellectual. And I said, you have to define intellectual for me, because I'm going to make an intellectual hagdara for you. There's a difference between intellectual and academic. If I give you a lot of work to do, that's not intellectual. That's just keeping you busy. And there are many seminaries in Israel where they give the girls an enormous amount of work. And I asked somebody once, why do you give them so much work? And they said, keeps them out of trouble. Now that's the educational message. Keep them busy so they stay out of trouble. There's something to be said for that, right? So I said, that's not called intellectual. Intellectual is making a person think, asking the questions of life. And people don't like that. People don't want those kind of questions. People want not to have to think too deeply on a particular subject. I'll give you an example. I was doing a question and answer at a particular Beis Yaakov seminary in Eretz Yisrael. And I said, we have to try to understand the basic issues of Judaism and how to answer them. So this one girl said, you shouldn't answer questions. It takes away from your emunah pshuta. Simple faith, if you're not familiar with the term. Simple faith. There is a concept of emunah pshuta. I said, so you define emunah pshuta as believing in something that might make no sense and never questioning it. And the girl said, yes. I said, then you will never have the emunah pshuta of a Mormon. Now, if there are any Mormons watching out here, I don't mean to be offensive, so I don't want to offend anybody. But I'm going to give you my understanding of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, their beliefs. I may get some of this wrong. I stayed once in Marriott, who is a Mormon, and they put a Book of the Mormons in the drawer there instead of a Gideon Bible, so I read a little bit of it. So I have a little bit of an understanding, and I might be getting some of this wrong, but I'm going to try the best I can to be accurate. Joseph Smith, who had been convicted in the past for fraud, that's not in the Book of the Mormons, but you can look that part up, claims that an angel took him to a mountain in upstate New York, where he dug up golden plates that had been buried 1900 years earlier by Jesus. Yashka, evidently after the resurrection, instead of going straight to heaven, went to upstate New York. And it's always nice that time of year. And he buried these golden plates. And the angel took him to the place and dug up the golden plates. Now, in the Book of the Mormons, this I read in the Book of the Mormons, a number of family members testify that they were allowed to feel the golden plates under a cloth. They couldn't see them, but they did feel them under a cloth. And after Joseph Smith transcribed them, the angel took him away, which is too bad, because I think as a piece of evidence that would have been tremendous, but okay. And so he gathers together his followers, mostly women, to begin their journey to the Pacific Ocean. And as they passed through towns, they gained adherents, and also there were people who were very angry with them. And eventually, Joseph Smith was killed by an angry mob, and his student Brigham Young took over and continued the journey until they arrived at the Pacific Ocean. And they gave thanks to God for bringing them to the Pacific Ocean, which, through poor planning, was in fact the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And they allowed polygamy because they had so many women, not enough men, so they allowed you to marry more than one wife. And eventually, community grew, Utah developed, and they wanted to enter the United States as a state. And they said, you can't because you allow polygamy. Now, one of the things about the Mormon church is that the head of the church has a direct line to God and can every now and then get prophecy. And God came to him and said that we want you now to outlaw polygamy. And you have to admit, the timing is what made this particularly miraculous. Because if he had come to them at a different time before the United States demanded that they outlaw it, I don't know that it would have had the same impact. But it was just then that God told them to outlaw it. And by the way, this continues down to our very day. So at some point, Brigham Young University did not allow in black students, and the College Basketball League was basically banned them from playing. And God came to the head of the Mormon church and told him that they should now allow in black students. Now, to a cynic, you might think he just made that up, but if you have that level of faith, you understand that God revealed this to him. Now, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty tremendous. So, okay. So that's a Emunah Pshuta. So one of my kids was in high school, and I always tell my children, whatever you hear in the house, don't share it with the general public, because most people can't handle it. My kids, teachers either loved them or hated them, depending on whether or not they were very smart or not. My children are very smart, and we answer questions in my house, and we deal with issues. And so my kids are really rather well versed. It was one time a yeshiva student asked one of my kids to switch seats on the plane. He was sitting next to these two women and asked if one of my daughters would change seats. She agreed. And it turned out these two women were missionaries. And they spent the flight trying to convert my daughter. I really felt bad for them. At the end, she had them ready to come over for Shabbos. They can hold their own. Anyway, so it was before Hanukkah, and the teacher said the difference between the Greeks and the Jews is that the Greeks, everything has to be logical, it has to make sense. We just believe. So my daughter said, you mean we're naive? We just believe what anybody says? So the teacher says, well, it says, we stood at Har Sinai and said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We'll do whatever you say. And my daughter said, that was after Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus, the 10 plagues, Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the Red Sea. The mun had fallen from the sky. They heard God speaking at Mount Sinai. They had what to base it on. It wasn't just someone came to them and said, will you believe anything I tell you? And this teacher, to her tremendous credit, said, you're right. You're right. You can't just believe something. You have to look into it. So, intellectual is not academic. Academic is, I give you lots of sources to prepare, to write a report on it, to jot it down. Intellectual is where I ask you to ask basic questions about your life. And not every place wants you to do that. In fact, many places don't. I know certain high schools in America where they said, we don't want the girls to ask questions because it's just going to cause problems. Tell them just to believe. Don't ask any questions. Don't say, just believe. Just believe. What happens when these girls go out into the world and they get a job and people ask them questions and they start thinking? How many times have I had from people? I was once at a Project Inspire convention, and I was sitting at a table with people from Borough Park, Lakewood, like real frummes, Hasidim, yeah. And they were peppering me with questions. And I took a look, and all the other faculty members were all sitting at a table, like, sharing trade stories, and I'm working through the meals here, So I said, how come I'm sitting over there? They said, you were requested. Because these are from people who grew up from, and no one ever answered their questions. I don't know why they do what they do. I had a very nice time, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it very much. But I just thought it was interesting that I was requested. Why? Because I used to write a column for Chinuch and Hamadiyah. And people used to write in specific questions on issues for me to deal with. And I said, listen, there are other people who write for the paper. Why are you writing to me? And they say, because everyone knows that you deal with the real issues. You'll address the elephant in the room. And I will. I'm not afraid. I'm happy to talk about issues. So when you're looking for a place, are you looking for a place that's intellectual? Are you looking for a place that's academic? or you're looking for a place that's not academic. So there are certain seminaries which are known not to be academic. They don't put demands on you. There are certain girls who prefer to go there either because they don't feel they have the ability to keep up with the academic level, or they don't want to. They don't want to. The question is the rigors of that type of work that you're asking girls to do. What's the end result? And if you remember, I said this all the way at the beginning. When you're deciding to go to seminary, ask yourself, why am I going to seminary? What is there that I hope to gain? What is it that I want to accomplish? And if you look across the intellectual study and you say, I would like to become a Torah scholar. I asked the seminary once. I said, what would you consider the biggest success? A girl who at the end of your seminary ends up writing the definitive parish on Treyasar, or a woman who gets married and boy learns, she supports her husband, she raises a Torah home, she brings up her children. Which is the biggest success? And they said, for sure, the second one. I said, so is your education designed to produce that girl? Or to produce the intellectual who's going to write lots of reports? How many reports do you have to write? And what's the point of it? So if I look at a seminary and I say, they don't share my values in life, but it's got a great reputation. It'll be good for shidduchim. My friends are going. They get the best girls, whatever the cheshbon is. But they're going to be telling you things that are against what your personal belief system is. Now, it's not a problem for most girls, because most girls don't know what their belief system is. And I've had girls who said to me, I don't have to know what my belief system is. Yeah, I don't need a Rebbe. If I have a question, I ask my father. My father goes and asks his Das Torah. And I'll get married, and I'll ask my husband what his Rebbe says, and that's what I'm going to do. I don't need a Rebbe. I don't need anybody to give me direction in life, or what for? Okay. So you have to sit down then beforehand and decide what are your family values. Now listen very carefully what I'm going to say. Rav Dessler says, we clap chet on Yom Kippur. We are not so brazen-faced or so stubborn to say we've never sinned. We and our fathers have sinned. What are you dragging your fathers in for? And the answer is because we tend to follow what our family does without asking any questions. In our family, we do that. That's what we do in our family. And when people say that's what we do in our family, okay, but is that the right thing? There's a famous story where in MTJ, they said when the boys start off learning, why do we teach them, B'Metziah, Elo Metzias? Why don't we start off by teaching them brachos, something that's more halach l'maisa? Start with Tfilas HaShachar. So the answer Moshe Feinstein gave was, because when a kid starts learning, you have to teach them about life. And that is, if you find something that doesn't belong to you, give it back. But he told afterwards the real reason. He says, I'm going to start with Tfilas HaShachar. They're going to learn there's something called Sof Zman Kriya Shema, Sof Zman Tefillah, and they're going to realize that their father doesn't keep it. I'm going to create tension for these kids. In our house, we're not so makbid on that. Not so makbid on that. Is it the halacha or is it not the halacha? So are you willing to get exposed to certain ideas? Now, they may take or they may not take. A parent was complaining to me, my son came home from yeshiva, and he's so fafrumt, he won't do this, he won't do that. I said, stay calm. It's just a phase. It'll wear off. And then he'll become just like you and not care about anything. I've said this more than once. Sometimes parents get upset at me. Sometimes they're like, oh, good. So do you want someplace? So I'm only going to go to a yeshiva or a seminary that I know is going to tell me what I already want to hear. There are people who hire rabbis that way. Yeah. There was a synagogue where they fired the rabbi because he was too old. This was after 3 years. He says, did they think I was going to get younger? He says, and if I'm much older, maybe it's because of them. Maybe they aged me. But they sent around a questionnaire. They were numbered, and they were supposed to be returned, and no one was supposed to know about this. But somebody in the shul was outraged and sent me a copy. Do you want the rabbi to A, raise the mechitza, B, lower the mechitza, C, keep it the way it is? Do you want the rabbi's wife to A, cover her hair, B, not cover her hair, C, cover it a little bit? Which schools can the rabbi send his kids to? And down the line. And I said, you don't need a rabbi. You need an actor with a deep baritone voice. And he'll get up and say whatever it is you want him to say. Because if I only want to go to an echo chamber, I only want to go someplace where they're going to say, now, okay, I agree. This can be very difficult. I am intellectually curious. I talk to Jews. I talk to non-Jews. I talk to Reform Jews. I talk to conservative Jews. I talk to Christians, Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, atheists. I want to understand what their position is because I'm very curious. I want to understand what people are saying, what they're thinking. And it's a little scary to me that I know more about Christianity than most Christians I've spoken to. I certainly know more about conservative Judaism than most conservative Jews. It's an amazing thing to me that people don't know what they're saying, but they want to make sure that they're not shaken up. I was teaching in a seminary. I taught Masil Sharm. My second or third year, this girl comes to me after first semester, and she says, when I came here this year, I had my whole life planned out. I knew what kind of guy I was going to marry. I knew where I was going to live. I knew what kind of sheitel I was going to wear. I mean, I had my whole life worked out. And now, after one semester of this course, I'm disgusted by the person I almost became. And then she pauses and says, and the odds are I'm probably going to do it anyway. Because everyone does what everyone does, because that's what everyone does. But there was 1 year, a lot of girls dropped out at the first semester. Every year some drop out, but a lot of girls dropped out. And I was surprised, and I asked one of the madrichot, what happened? So they talked to a bunch of the girls, and they said, the girls said, if I stay in this course, I'm going to have to change my life, and I don't want to. So when you say, should I pick a seminary that's going to present views that are different than my own, or should I only go someplace where they're going to echo what I already believe in? So a lot of that has to do with what your general approach to life is. If you're sure that you're right, and you're sure that your mahalach is correct, stay on safe ground. But if you want to expose yourself to other ideas, then maybe you should consider someplace that's different than where you are, simply to be able to hear those different ideas and expose yourself to different concepts. And again, if you're afraid that that may shake you up, don't do it. There was a fellow, passed away, he was here in Israel, David Hartman, the Hartman Institute. And the story goes, and again, I didn't confirm this, I'm not Pesach Kram, but the story goes that he wanted to go off and study philosophy. And he asked his Rebbe, Rav Soloveitchik, if he could study philosophy. Now, Rebbe Soloveitchik did his doctoral thesis on Kant, so obviously he thinks philosophy is okay, you know. So he asked if I could go study philosophy. So he says, what's the problem? He says, I might become an apikaris. He says, listen, every time you get in a plane, the plane could crash. But that doesn't mean you never go on a plane. Years later, he sent Rav Soloveitchik a letter It was a very short one. It just said, the plane crashed. So it could be that you could expose yourself to different ideas. And not only different ideas, like I brushed over it, the type of girls who go there. There was a guy who was a Tomim, came from an excellent family in Habatzis HaTorah, a master mechanech. And he was a great boy. And he went to the mirror. He ended up in a bad dira. And his father was so upset because he said he had friends. They could have told him it was a bad dira. The kid today is not from Pshutu K'mashmo. Oichel Nevelis. Mechalo Shabbos. Oh, are you sure you want to expose yourself to all different types of things? You end up going to a seminary. You didn't know this, The girls listen to music that you don't listen to, or the girls are involved with boys, or there are other things that are going on. People go to a particular seminary and then they go away to, the girls all form little gangs, and they go away for Shabbos to a relative who doesn't maintain the standards that they maintain. They're exposed to stuff. They get involved with things. They didn't consider this. So the question is, a lot of it depends on what your goal is, and it goes back to the first question. Why are you going to seminary? Do you want to expose yourself to new ideas and different things? Or do you want a place that's going to echo what it is you want already? And I can make an argument for both sides. I'm not judging here. I'm not saying this is right and this is wrong. I can understand if a person wants to be in a safe spot, and I can understand if a person wants to be an intellectual, whether that means hearing ideas from the right or from the left or whichever way you want to go. I understand that. But you have to be clear beforehand what it is you're trying to accomplish. Be real. I always tell people, be real. You have to decide, what is it that I'm trying to say? What is it that I'm trying to accomplish? What do I want at the end of the day? This woman used to come in the summer. She used to take classes in Eretz Yisrael. And she said to me, it's so different here, because I live in whatever community is in America, because people, don't like it when I mention communities because they think that I'm attacking the entire community. I'm not. I'm just telling the stories that happened, but okay, I won't mention. But a well-established religious community. And she says, I go to a Hilchos Shabbos shir there, and I have a neighbor whose son's learning kollel, their daughter's married, boys learning kollel, very frum. And I saw her and I said, I heard the most amazing thing in my Hilchos Shabbos class, and she said, don't tell me I have enough halachas already. I don't need any more. Okay. Why are people afraid to hear ideas? So there are people who are afraid they have enough. I like where I am in life. I'm not looking to change. I'm not looking to make my life different. It's working for me. And I hear that. So that's just a aspect of the question. We're obviously not done with this topic. We got more to talk about. But that's what we wanted to talk about, at least for this part of the series. And that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the podcast, go to RabbiOrlofsky.com, where you can add comments, see my upcoming event schedule. Contact me directly. If you want to sponsor an episode, go to RabbiOrlofsky.com/podcast and click on the sponsor an episode button. I am Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.